Hello. Good afternoon. Is that Okoronkwo, Victoria?
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon. How is your studies?
Very well, sir.
It's like you are the only son in the platform, only daughter in the platform. What happened
Wow.
to your
Sir, I didn't get you, sir.
I say it's like you are the only daughter in the platform, the only person that
Oh,
joined. What happened to others? Mm. Mm. You don't know.
I, I thought I was even late for the class.
No, I can only see one person. That's you, Victoria Onyinyechi. Okay, no problem. We can start because today is revision. Maybe they decided not to be serious because today is revision class. But all the same, it's good. So we want to look at what we did in over the 6 weeks period of facilitation, just to run across and remind us of what we did. In the first week, we looked at diversity of life, organization of life, from the cellular level to the tissue level, to the organ level, to the system level, to the entire whole organism. So that is how life is organized. So some are at the cellular level of organization. Some are at the tissue level of organization. Some are at the organ level of organization. Some are at the whole system level of organization. So we looked at that. And also we looked at properties of life or characteristics of living things. Of course, we look at living things and non-living things. The living things are those organisms that have life in them, while non-living things are those organisms that do not have life in them. We gave examples of living things like trees, like rats, like monkey. We gave example of non-living thing like phone, like stone, like computer, like a rubber bath. These cement, these are non-living things. And then we look at the characteristics, things that we use to know living things. That's the properties or characteristics of living things. We use an acronym, Mr. D Niger or Mr. Niger D. Why N stands for nutrition. Everything, all living organisms feeds. Though you have different types of feeding. The way plant feed is different from the way animals feed. Animals are consumers, while plants are producers. We also looked at I, which is irritability, ability of organism to respond to stimuli. That is I, irritability. Then we also looked at G, which is growth. We say that every all living organism must grow. You cannot continue to be small or tiny as you were. After fertilization, you were a zygote in your mother's womb, very tiny, but division continues to take place. Embryogenesis takes place. That after 1 year, you were born. After the first year, second year, after the third year or fourth year, you have started kindergarten. From kindergarten, you went to primary school. You graduated in primary school at the age of 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 and went to your secondary school. Growth is still taking place. From your secondary school, growth is taking place until you have entered the university. And I'm sure growth has not ended. You will still be one of these topmost people in the society, the wife of one of those topmost people. You see that when money comes big, you still grow. Uh-huh. When you start having children, you see additional things that are growing, coming up. So that's growth for us. Then we also looked at uh, reproduction as one of the characteristics of living things. You reproduce. The reason why you marry is to have issue. even though it may not be the primary purpose of marriage. But organisms pay together. Like if you watch even termites, they pay together. Why? For the purpose of reproduction. If you look at birds, they move together. Even chicken, in our house, you see a cock and a hen. They reproduce, birds reproduce. So as tiny as an ant is, they reproduce because they know the importance of reproduction. Plants also reproduce. That's why they bear fruits. And the fruits also bring forth other plants. So that's for R. Then from M, movement. Organisms move from place to place. That's animals. But plants, they can move, even though they may not move from place to place. You see a form of movement in plants. Then excretion is the removal of waste product of metabolism. It's one of the characteristics of living things. The waste inside it, the waste you generate from your cells, waste product of metabolism, they have to be taken out of the body in what we call excretion. Then you also have respiration, exchange of gases. You take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide as animals. But plants take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. All these are respiration, gaseous exchange. They happen in living things. Then we also looked at differences between living things and non-living things. All these characteristics that I've mentioned are exhibited by living things. Non-living things do not exhibit them. They don't move, they don't reproduce, they don't carry out irritability, they don't grow, they don't feed, they don't carry out respiration. Then I think death is another characteristic of living things, because anything living must have an expiring day where that organism will die. And that's why a death occurs. And death is a necessary thing, necessary end. And of course, if you follow Darwin's theory of evolution, Darwin's proposed that that death is very, very important, because when organisms die, new ones will come and replace them. So that is a characteristic of living things. So that was what we did in week 1. From there, we moved to week 2, where we looked at a microscope. And then we said that microscope are a kind of equipment that enable us to see microscopic organisms. Those organisms we cannot see with our naked eye. Then we use microscope to do what? To view them. We use microscope to view those organisms that we cannot see with our naked eyes. We also said that we have different types of microscope, from the simplest light microscope to the digital electronic microscope, very sophisticated microscope, currently used in some hospitals. So the light microscope has almost gone. The one you can use the sunlight. You come out, it has a mirror, and they use those ones are the first stage of microscope. It's like black and white television. That type has gone. So we also looked at the different parts of the microscope. I think it's an assignment I gave us to draw and label different types, parts of a microscope. We're using a simple microscope to look at it. Yeah. Yes. So that is microscope. I asked you to look at the parts, the handle, the eyepiece, the nose piece, the stand. These are the different parts. So look at any textbook and look at the diagram of microscope, simple microscope, but that of compound and the digital electronic microscope, they may be complex for us. Then, and look at the functions of those different parts. What is the lens for? What is the eyepiece for? What is the handle for? What is the stand for? And other parts of microscope. So you look at that. From then, I also told you that somebody discovered microscope, and that is Leeuwenhoek. Leeuwenhoek was the one that discovered microscope. And that the coming of microscope help us to see microorganisms. And that's why we're able to investigate some of these organisms that cause sickness to us. If you go to hospital, you go to lab section. If you go to laboratory section, you see microscope that helps to look at your blood to find whether you have malaria parasite, or whether you have any virus, or whether you have any bacteria in you. So a microscope that helps us to see those microorganisms. Now, from there, we look at cells. We look at cells. We define cell as smallest unit of life. And we say that cells are present in plants and cells are present in animals. That cells present in plants are called plant cells, while those present in animals are called animal cells. And so the cell is the basic unit, the building block of any human being, of any organism. The building unit of any organism is a cell. It's like a building. When you come to your house, you put block on top of one another to make a building, and use cement to cement it and paint it and do every kind of decoration. Somebody may not discover, looking at that building, may not know that something was put on top of one another to make the building. And that is what we call cells, equivalent to cells in our body. Our body is made up of thousands and millions of cells that are put together. So to make up, when you join cells together, they make tissue. When you join tissue together, they make what? Organ. Like eye is the organ of sight, nose is the organ of smelling, liver, what skin is the organ of touch. These are different organs in our body. Then a group of organs make up the entire system. You have digestive system, reproductive system, circulatory system, and other systems in the body. So that is this. So cells are very, very important. So, and you have plant cell and animal cell. So cells in plants are called plant cells. And we're expected to know how to draw a plant cell and label the plant cell. All the parts of the plant cell, you need to know how to label them. And of course, if you draw a plant cell, you see the outermost covering is called cellulose cell wall. And this cellulose cell wall is hard. And that's why you can push a plant and the plant will push you back, because it's not soft at all. If you hit your hand, you wound, because that plant is very, very hard, because the outermost covering of the cell is made up of cellulose cell wall, which is hard. And then after the cellulose cell wall, we meet what we call the middle lamella. Middle lamella that separates the is next to the cellulose cell wall. Then after that middle lamella, you meet the cell membrane and etc. Then you meet the cytoplasm, the nucleus, the vacuole, which is very large, and the other inclusions. The mitochondria, chloroplasts, which are present in plants. Now, we look at animal cell. Animal cell is the same thing, the same way like plant cell, but then animal cell is smaller than the plant cell. Animal cell, the outermost covering of animal cell is not cell wall, rather, it is cell membrane, and cell membrane is soft. And that's why if you touch your skin, it looks succulent and soft, because the outermost covering of the cell is cell membrane. It protects the cell from external forces and other things. So, and then when you now move inside, after the cell membrane, you meet the cytoplasm, and then the nucleus, then the nuclear membrane, the nucleolus, then endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi bodies, the lysosomes, the ribosomes, the mitochondria, and the rest of them in animal cell. So then we did the differences between plant cell and animal cell. I asked you to list 10 differences between plant cell and animal cell. One, animal cell is large, plant cell is small. Secondly, plant cell has a cellulose cell wall. Animal cell do not have cellulose cell wall. Plant cell has middle lamella. Animal cell do not have middle lamella. Plant cell has a large vacuum. Animal cell has small vacuum. Just like that, 10 of them. You list them. And then we look at similarities. I also ask you to give the similarities. What are the things they have in common? Both of them have nucleus. Both of them have what? Cytoplasm. Both of them have what? A vacuole. Both of them have endoplasm, have mitochondria and etc. So we look at that. Then and so on and so on. So that's about the plant cell and animal cell. Then we move forward to look at cell theory. And what is cell theory? The cell theory states that a cell is the unit of structure and function of life. That cell is the unit of structure and function of life. That's the cell theory. Cell is the unit of structure. Okay, that cell is the, first of all, we define cell as that cell is the basic unit of life. And then we'll now come to cell theory. Cell theories are divided into three parts. That you can state it in three ways. That cell is the basic structural unit of life. Basic structural unit of life. Two, cell is the functional unit of life. Cell is the functional unit of life. And third, wherever a cell exists, there must be a pre-existing cell, or a cell give rise to a cell, or cell begets cell. So if you are asked to state cell theory, you say the following. The cell theory states that one, a cell is the basic structural unit of life. Two, a cell is basic functional unit of life. And three, wherever there is a cell, there is a pre-existing cell, or the cell can give rise to a new cell. That's that. So that's the cell theories. And we mentioned some scientists that contributed to the development of cell theory. We mentioned Robert Hooke. We mentioned Robert Hooke as one of the scientists that contributed to the development of cell theory. We mentioned Felix Dujardin. Felix Dujardin. We mentioned Matthias Schleiden. Matthias Schleiden. We mentioned Rudolf von Virchow. Rudolf von Virchow. Rudolf von Virchow. So there are five of them. First is Robert Hooke. Two, Felix Dujardin. Three, Matthias Schleiden. Four, Theodor Schwann. And five, Rudolf von Virchow. These are the five scientists that contributed to the development of cell theory. Week 3. On week 3, we looked at cell communications that takes place in the cell. And then we also looked at the interaction between organisms. We mentioned the interaction between plant and animal. That while plants manufacture food, animals also do what? Feed on the plant, on the food manufactured by the plant. Is an interaction. Then where plant releases oxygen, because during photosynthesis, they manufacture food through photosynthesis. And when they manufacture that food, then oxygen is released. The oxygen that is released by plants are also taken by animals. This is how plants help animals. Then how does animal help plants? Animals release carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide is needed by plants for photosynthesis. So during photosynthesis, CO2 combined with what? H2O in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to manufacture what? Sugar, and oxygen is released. So there's this interrelationship between what? Plants and animals. Then, of course, you know that plants and animals can die. And when they die, they form what? Manure in the soil. And then what happens to decompose plants and animals are microorganisms. So when they decompose them, they form nutrients. And these nutrients that are in the soil are taken up by plants again to carry out photosynthesis. And then when photosynthesis takes place, oxygen is released and food is also produced. So there is a lot of interaction going on between what? The producers and consumers. Producers are the plants, while consumers are the animals. So that's that. Then we looked at heredity. We looked at variation. We said that heredity is the tendency of organisms to resemble one another. For you to resemble your father, there is something in your father that was inherited. And that is what? The gene during reproduction, when you are conceived, the gene from your father moves in through the sperm. Then the gene from your mother is in that egg. And when sperm fertilize the egg, both of them will form zygote that contains the gene of the father and the gene of the mother. And so when you are born, you now resemble either your father or your mother or both of them. That is heredity. So heredity is the tendency of an organism to resemble one another and that of their parents. Then the next thing is variation. Variation is the tendency of organisms to be different from one another and to be different from their parents. And so sometimes you may not resemble your father, you may not resemble your mother, but you may resemble your grandmother. You may resemble your grandfather. So the gene has been suppressed. And that's why in genetics, you have what we call dominant character and recessive character. The dominant gene and the recessive gene. If you resemble your father very well, that means the gene of your father has dominated. So it is dominant. The gene of father is dominant. And that your mother is what? Recessive. If you resemble your mother, that means the gene of your mother is what? Dominant. While that of your father is what? Recessive. So you have dominant gene and what? Recessive gene. That brings us to Mendel's law. Because Mendel was a very known scientist, genetist. We know the history of Mendel. Mendel finished first degree in mathematics and physics. And then he decided to enter the seminary. He entered the seminary. And then in the seminary, because of the loneliness in the seminary, he started to play with what? Plants because of his background knowledge of mathematics and pollination and biology, basic biology. So he was able to cross-pollinate red flowered plants with white flowered plants. So expecting to get a red, expecting to get a mixture of red and white. But surprisingly, the first crossing, he only saw red and there was no white. So he was worried what has happened. That was showing that red was dominant. So when he now cross-pollinated the offspring, he now begin to have red and white in 75% or 3/4 or 3/4 red and 1/4 white. So that is Mendel. And so Mendel proposed the law. He called it law of what? Law of segregation of genes. Law of what? Separation or segregation of genes. He proposed two laws. The first law is law of segregation or separation of genes. And what does he say? He said that during formation of gametes, that genes separate. In other words, two allelic genes will never enter one gamete. Rather, they separate and enter individual gametes. That was Mendel's first law. Mendel also produced second law. He called it law of what? Independent assortment of genes. That during this process, there is assortment, there is a kind of combination assessment of genes. So that was Mendel's law. Now the next subtopic was introduction to evolution. We defined evolution as what? Changes that takes place over a long period of time. That is evolution. That's how organisms evolve. How do you come to this world if I ask you? Some people will say God created me. Agreed. Some people will say that my parents gave birth to me. Agreed. But who is your parents? Who were the parents of your parents? Who were the parents of your 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 parents? You see, when you begin to trace it to 10 generations, you find that it's not what they use there that is happening here. So evolution has taken place. And what is evolution? Changes that takes place over a long period of what? Time. And that is evolution. And today, we have father of evolution, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is regarded as father of evolution, just like as Gregor Mendel was regarded as the father of genetics. Charles Darwin is regarded as the father of what? Evolution. So Darwin's now came up with some theories. And then his theory is called theory of survival of the fittest. That's Darwin's theory. He called it theory of survival of the fittest. And what is the theory talking about? He said that even though organisms can compete for resources that are limited in supply, in the course of this competition, the stronger ones will survive, while the weaker one will die away. He knows that the stronger ones are the best fitted ones. He later called it law of what? Survival of the fittest. or the law of that nature, law of natural selection. That's what he called it. So he said that organisms can compete just as you are competing for resources. You may be admitted in year one, you may be 100 admitted in your department. But before you reach final year, you may reduce to 50 because some were not able to survive the heat. But those that are able to survive the heat is what Darwin is saying, that they are the stronger ones that will survive. Those ones that cannot survive are the weaker ones, they will die. He called it law of what? Law of survival of the world, fittest, or law of natural selection. Then his neighbor was called Lamarck. His neighbor was Jean Lamarck. Lamarck was also an evolutionary scientist. He propounded the law called law of, his own law was law of use and disuse. That organisms develop those structures or characters or those behaviors that enable them to survive in a given habitat and do away with those that are not necessary for survival. He called it law of what? Use and disuse. And then finally, he called it law of inheritance of acquired character. That this character that are acquired, that are developed, are inherited to the next generation. That was where he had a problem. Because inherited character will not be what? Be passed to the next generation. It may not be passed. Jean Lamarck was saying that if your father is a mathematician, that you must inherit mathematician from your father. And if your father is a herbalist, you inherit herbalist from your father. If your father is a medical doctor, you may inherit medicine from your father. Sometimes it happens, but sometimes it does not happen. That was why his law could not be regarded 100%. And that's why Jean Lamarck's theory was controversial. So that was why Darwin was picked as the father of evolution. Then we came to week 4. In week 4, we looked at reproduction in unicellular organisms, reproduction in microorganisms. We mentioned reproduction as one of the characteristics of living things. They reproduce. And that's why bacteria, that's why viruses reproduce. If one bacterial cell enter your body, before you know it, they have divided. One bacterium may enter your body. Before you know it, they have divided into thousands. So you find out that they undergo reproduction. And what are the types of reproduction? You have what we call binary fission, dividing into two. Like you have in amoeba, you have in other microorganisms. They can divide into two. That's what we call the binary fission. Then we also have multiple fission. They can divide and divide and divide and divide. One can divide into 30 or 40 or 20. So this is called multiple fission. Fission means division. F-I-S-S-I-O-N, fission. It means division. So it's different from fusion. F-U-S-S-I-O-N is fusion, which means joining. But fission means division. So we also looked at mitosis. And what is mitosis? The type of division that takes place in the body cell. The type of cell division that takes place in the body cell, either in plant or animal. We call it mitosis. So the division that takes place on your head, on your eye, on your hand, on your legs, and different parts of the body is called what? Mitosis. M-I-T-O-S-I-S. Mitosis. Then we also have meiosis. Meiosis is a type of cell division that takes place in your what? Sex cell or reproductive cell. Sex cell or reproductive cell. That is meiosis that takes place in your sex cell or reproductive cell. So remember, when fertilization has taken place, a zygote is formed. That zygote has to divide. Mitosis has to continue to take place. To divide until the child is born. It continues to divide until 1 year, divide 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. Around 13, 14, something will happen to that baby or to that child. Meiosis in where? Not in the body cell, but in the sex cell. Or remember, that person has a male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ. So you have there will be something we call spermatogenesis. The sperm will be formed. Formation of sperm when the child has reached the age of 13 or 14 is what we call spermatogenesis. It takes place in the what? in the spa in the what in the yes in your male reproductive organ in the scrotum. Do you understand? You have the scrotum that holds the what? The scrotal sac where the sperm are. That's where spermatogenesis will take place to form more cells that are produced in millions. That when you marry, you just release the cell, and when you release the sperm, they contain plenty of what? Cells, and they migrate, they move straight. Where they move through the vagina to the what? To the uterus. And then as they move to the uterus, they enter the fallopian tube. And what are they going to the fallopian tube? To meet the egg, because the egg has been released. That egg released enter the fallopian tube, and with the sperm coming there, fertilization will take place. That's how somebody becomes pregnant. Do you understand? So meiosis takes place when the person has reached the age of puberty or adult age. That's around 13 or 14 for male and female. So we have mitosis, you have what? Meiosis. So mitosis takes place in the body cell for the growth, for the development of the individual. So but meiosis takes place in the sex cell for what? For reproduction. It takes place either in the sperm or in the what? In the ovum. Is that okay? Yes. And what are the importance? The importance is that mitosis is necessary for growth, because if mitosis did not take place, you become akapo. You become this akapo that doesn't grow. Every day you are small. You can't even walk because you are still sitting down. So, but meiosis will take place so that the bones of your leg will grow. Every part of your body will grow. You walk, you go to school, you become an adult. So it's mitosis. Then for meiosis, it helps in reproduction, because when Obi can never be a boy every day. When you get married, you may look for a child. And looking for the child means spermatogenesis must have occurred for the male to produce the sperm, and even for the woman to have produced an egg, so that fertilization can take place, so that you bring up another human being or a child. Then we come to cell cycle. We look at cell cycle, and the cycle that takes place in the cell is called the cell cycle. You have the G1 phase, you have the what? The M phase, you have the G2 phase, and then you have the mitosis, the G1 phase, the S phase, the M phase, and G2 phase. This is what we discussed on the cell cycle. Know what is happening in each of the stage. Then we now come to week 5, where we look at active transport and passive transport. Active transport is that type of transport that require energy to push it through. But passive transport do not require energy to put it through. Then we look at osmosis as the movement of water molecule from a region where the water molecule is higher to the region where the water molecule is what? Lower. Through what? A semi-permeable membrane, until what? An equilibrium is established. We call it what? Osmosis. Then we also look at diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of molecule of a substance, solid, liquid, or gas, from a region where that molecule is higher to the region where the molecule is lower. There is no semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable is not involved. So I said that osmosis is the movement of water molecule from a region where water molecule is higher to the region where the water molecule is lower. Through what? A semi-permeable membrane, until an equilibrium is established. So in osmosis, it is only water molecules that move across. And some textbooks define osmosis as what? Movement of water molecules across a concentration gradient. Then diffusion is the movement of molecules of a substance, solid, liquid, or gas, from a region where that molecule is higher to the region where the molecule is what? Lower. And that's why you can use your perfume to open your perfume in your corner of from your bag where you are seated, and place it on your leg and do it. Before you know it, the entire class will begin to perceive it. It's moving from the region where you produce that perfume to the entire class, moving from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration until the molecules are evenly distributed. You can also use what? A rotten egg. When you break a rotten egg, the smell will spread everywhere. Even when somebody messes up, the odor will move from that particular area to the other area. Every person will perceive it. Even if you buy banana and keep it in your bag, the smell will be oozing, showing you that the molecules of that is moving from a higher concentration. Okay, I'm talking of diffusion. All this explanation I'm talking is about diffusion to show that diffusion takes place, like using the perfume or using egg, broken egg, or using a banana and buy banana and put it in your bag. That is diffusion. But osmosis, you can demonstrate osmosis using a pawpaw, unripe pawpaw. You cut the unripe pawpaw from the top, pour out the seeds, then remove the skin, then prepare, and then the bottom also cut the bottom, but you will not open it so that it will not perforate, just to make it to stand on the bowel. Then you prepare sugar solution, that is get water and put sugar it, and pour it inside that opening of that pawpaw and mark the level. And pour water in the beaker or in the container that you have kept the pawpaw and allow it to stand for about 3 or 4 hours. When you come, the level of sugar solution will rise from original level to a new level. Tell you that osmosis has taken place. What is the importance of osmosis? Osmosis is important because it is through osmosis that plants take in water from the soil, because inside the root of the plant is more concentrated than the water outside. You have plenty water outside. So water will move from where you have plenty of water to where you have lower water. And that's why water moves into the root of the plant from the soil. And so from one cell to another cell to another cell, because when you come in, you dilute the cell, and that cell becomes weaker than the next one. So water will move and continue to move until it reaches all parts of the plant. So osmosis is very important for us to what? To feed. Osmosis is also very important for what? For the opening and closing of the stomata. Yes. Then diffusion is also very important, because for you to breathe in and breathe out, it is by diffusion. Even for the movement of carbon dioxide into plants is by diffusion. The diffusion is very, very important. We come to week 6. And in week 6, we looked at natural selection and evolution of population. We also looked at adaptation. Adaptation is the ability of organisms to what? To adapt at any habitat. So for you to survive in any habitat, you must what? Adapt. And that's why survival of the fittest is very, very important. Because you may be many in that habitat, but those that are not able to survive will be what? Are gone. We go, allowing those that can survive to what? To survive. Then we also looked a little bit about ecology. We said that ecology is a branch of biology that studies the interaction between what? Organisms and its environment. That is the ecological system. From the word eco and logy. Logy is the interaction. Eco is the study of. So logy is study of. Eco is about environment. So the interaction going on between what? Organisms and their environment is known as what? Ecology. We looked at habitats. A habitat is the place of living of an organism. Where an organism dwells is its habitat. You have aquatic habitats, you have terrestrial habitats, you have arboreal habitats, that is organisms that live in the air. Then organisms that live in the soil are what? Terrestrial. Organisms that live in the water are aquatic. So these are different types of habitat.
So then, the ecology. Can you come again, please?
Ecology is the study of the interaction between living organisms and their environment. The interaction going on between organisms and the environment is what? Ecology. It resembles ecosystem. From ecology, you can see ecosystem. Ecosystem is the total interaction between the what? Biotic and abiotic factors of the environment. I've gone a little bit faster. What is biotic? Biotic are living organisms that involves plants and animals. What are the abiotic?